Hey everyone, it's Karen. So I know a lot of you have read The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead, but what I wanted to show you is the true story behind that, which is The Boys of the Dark by a lot of authors, Rob and Gabby Fisher, with Michael O. McCarthy and Robert W. Straley. So I first heard about this because I was reading The Nickel Boys, and this is mentioned at the end that it was one of the resources that Colson Whitehead used when he was writing his book. And I was really interested to hear more about this school and about the true story. So the book actually starts with the final author, Robert W. Straley, and it talks a lot about his childhood. This definitely struck me. This is what it says. As entertaining as Robert's mother could be, her mood swung wildly, and her wrath was fierce. He never knew what might set her off. A moved tchotchke on a shelf or a footprint on a freshly swept rug was all it took. Then there was hell to pay. The emotional mauling was agonizing, and Robert used to wish that she would smack him rather than badger him relentlessly for days after some perceived transgression. And I definitely have seen that before, where not to dismiss physical abuse, but sometimes emotional abuse is even more traumatizing for people. And yeah, they do often pray that there would be marks that they could show their teacher or something like that. And you can't, the line between what's just like having a bad day versus emotionally abusing somebody is very gray, and I think that people really do not report stuff like that. And so that's his childhood. So at age 13, barely 13, he had just turned 13, he runs away. And because he runs away, he gets sent to the Florida School for Boys, and that's where his story starts. He talks about a lot of the bad stuff that has happened to him and how it has persisted in his adult life with a lot of PTSD sort of symptoms. And as an adult, he decides, this is ridiculous. This has impacted my entire life. And so he actually reaches out to the second author on here, Michael O. McCarthy, who was a journalist and filmmaker, and he created this film about the Rosewood Massacre. And when Robert saw that, he was just blown away by it, and he's like, we need justice for what happened to me and what happened to the other boys at this school. And so he reaches out to Michael, not realizing that Michael also had been a student at that school. I use student loosely. So as a child, Michael also had kind of a traumatic childhood. He spent a lot of time with his stepfather, who would just basically frequent bars, and he had a horrible temper. So of course, Michael just kind of lashes out and has a series of minor issues with the law and is sent to the Florida School for Boys. Both of these men are absolutely just destroyed by it, and for both of them, it impacts their adult life. They decide to work together, trying to do some research and find out more about the stories of other people that have been there. So that's where the rest of this story goes, is just sharing the stories of both of those two men, as well as what they find out through their research. It kind of follows them through their research process and about the stories of other people that have been in this camp, school, torture center. I don't even know what to call it. One of my expectations was that this wouldn't be very well written. I guess I hadn't really heard of it prior to reading this book. I haven't seen it talked about much on BookTube. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it would be very well written, and I just wanted to read it anyway. But it actually is really well written, and the author has won the Pulitzer Prize for feature writing. So this book was so good. The only thing I will say is that it is so similar to the Nickel Boys. Definitely, he used this for research, and he says that in his book. But some of the stories that happened in here, I was like, oh my gosh, it was so close to the story in the Nickel Boys. So that's why I don't want to go into too many details about what happened at the school. But it was a horrible place. Well, if you've read the Nickel Boys, you'll know that. And if not, I would really recommend reading, probably in the same order I did, starting with the Nickel Boys and then reading the true story. Because if you read the true story first, I don't know. I don't necessarily think the Nickel Boys will be spoiled per se because you don't know what's going to happen to these fictional characters, but I really think the order I did it in was really nice, getting your attention and building some interest by reading this first and then read the nonfiction. So, two of the major things that I kind of thought about while reading this book is just this idea of prevention. As far as like both of these boys who went there had very difficult childhoods, and had they been protected from their abusive situations, who knows if they would have ended up in the Florida School for Boys. And I'm just curious, like, I guess I'm not curious because I kind of know working with children how much it's done to help kids in abusive situations, but it just breaks my heart sometimes that you know stuff is going on, you report it, and like, I don't know, there's just not much that goes on to help these kids, and it's heartbreaking for me sometimes to just watch kids fall through the cracks or fail. And I'm just curious about how we as a society can do better. Obviously, the Florida School for Boys is closed, but similar things happen to kids as far as falling through the cracks or ending up in the juvenile justice system or ending up in prison as adults. And I'm just curious what we can do for better prevention. And that was something that I think would have helped the boys in this book as well. Also, there's this idea of the value of life. I think there's a lot of people who claim to be pro-life, but I'm not sure that they always like respect and fight for the lives of everybody. And I wish that the term pro-life really encompassed that, taking care of everybody, no matter what their age was, whether they were unborn or living on Earth. It just breaks my heart. And yeah, I just think that in this story, what you actually find out is that this school had been reported quite a few other times before Robin got involved and before Michael got involved, and people just didn't seem to care. The school was based in a very rural Florida community. It was very low income, and this was a major source of employment for the people in the town. This was like the desired place of employment for people in the town. It was a very great job for them to have. And so I don't know. I don't know if they felt that these kids just deserved this sort of treatment or if they just felt like they were throwaway kids. But I just think that's an interesting question. Like, what is life and whose lives do we value? I would highly recommend this book. I gave it 5 stars. Again, heartbreaking, just like the Nickel Boys, so be ready to read it, but I would highly recommend it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.